Hello. I don't usually do live streams so close together. I did one 2 days ago. Hi, Dave. And I'm back again. But I have a lot to talk about, and things are shifting so rapidly, and the shifts are all so major that I decided that I'm going to plow through. I wasn't sure today what I was going to talk about because it's going in kind of a number of different categories, and you wouldn't know from my live streams, which can be really rambly. Hi, Erin. Oh, it's amazing. My nose is running. It wasn't running like 2 seconds ago. It just happens as soon as I start the live streams. That is the funniest thing. There's a bunch of information that wants to, I feel prompted, strongly prompted from Spirit. I try not to do live streams on any kind of a schedule, even though I would like to. And like on a personality level, it would be my tendency or my preference to say, well, like every Friday I do a live stream and it's a routine, but it never comes through that way. Like that's kind of my own, personality, ego-driven, or more third-dimensional way of doing it. But that's really not the plan that Spirit has. What happens is that I feel a strong push, kind of from behind, and a wave of information. I can kind of feel it building behind me. And it's kind of like, well, this wants to come in now. This wants to be delivered. So this may be a weird live stream. I think I say that every time. But it feels like there are 3 or 4 or 5 different sections of information. And hi, you're perky. You suddenly woke up. This is Carmen. Her head is still a little bit pink. I don't know if you can see it. A while ago, we spontaneously colored her with with face paint, and then we washed it off when she was taking a bath, because I give her a bath sometimes. And I took a brush and I scrubbed her head, and all of the colors came off except the pink on her head. So I don't know. It seems like maybe we stained her a little bit. She doesn't seem to mind, and it's all non-toxic. But that's why, like, if you look at her and it seems like she's, her head is pink, it is. Anyway, so the information that wanted to come in today started this morning. It's information that I've known is coming through. I've known that I've known for a while that I would be talking about it. And for some reason, there's like a group of 3 different subjects, but a lot of it seems, for some reason, all 3 of them came in today, and they don't really relate to one another necessarily. I might have to go get a tissue now. Damn. Sorry. Wait, there's one here. Just a minute. I only ever have to blow my nose when it's a live stream. That's so weird. Anyway. And some of the information are just like stories. I just have some stories. Like sometimes, you know how sometimes in my live streams I've got diagrams, and I've got a whole bunch of diagrams that are new that I've never discussed, and all of that wants to come in, and I kind of feel like there might be another live stream tomorrow or shortly after this live stream. That's just the way it, you can kind of sense things building, but we'll see what comes through. God knows my plans for these things go haywire as soon as people come on. And sometimes people join. If you've seen my live streams in the past, sometimes people join and I'll be like mid-sentence and it will suddenly veer off because some information wants to come for the person who just joined. It's amazing, but that's just part of being in channel. So I have, you can't see it, but in front of me, I have this array of stones, various minerals. I've got about, I don't know, maybe 12 or so that wanted to join me today. I've got this Lemurian seed crystal, this little child one. For some reason, this one is a child. I don't know why. I've got other Lemurian seed crystals, which, and they all have their own personality. They carry certain information, but this one carries child information, and it's that of young children. I used to be a preschool teacher, by the way, if you didn't know that. I also used to be a charged scenic artist for, you know, like a background scenic artist for Broadway and opera houses and paint scenery. And I was a prop designer and prop artist. For those of you who don't know, I don't know why I just felt like mentioning that. I've got a master's degree in painting and a bachelor's degree in painting. And then I went to school for scenic art. And that's what I did for a long time. And then I also taught art K through 8 for a bit. Anyway, but then I went back to get my master's degree in painting at the New York Academy of Art Graduate School of Figurative Art. So I have a degree in figuration. And someday I'll show my artwork, but not right now. So, but spiritually, really what I do now is when I woke up for real, especially when I woke up to the Joan of Arc identity. When I woke up to that, everything else went out the window. And it's like, no, you do this now. And integrating that identity has been a full-time job for the last 7 years because it was huge. And it also came with, it was its own job. It is its own job. And working for the ascension of the planet is basically my full-time job. That's the only thing I do. When I was born awake, but there's a difference between being awake in the 3rd dimension and awake in 5, and then like absolutely awake, really, really awake, and it's a whole other ball of wax, isn't it? I had a full Kundalini awakening in 2013. And I'm not going to go into that story completely because that's a long and extensive story, but I will talk about it. Actually, maybe I'll do that in my next live stream. You know, when your Kundalini rises, it starts at the base of your spine. And mine was already somewhat up there. It was probably like sacral region. But I met my twin, and so that's a catalyst to an awakening. And it sparked a rapid reawakening. I read someplace, I hadn't actually intended to talk about this at all, but I read someplace when I was reading about Kundalini awakening and thinking about my own process. I read that for people who have the full Kundalini awakening very quickly, you know, the energy goes up your spine, and vertebra by vertebra, there are 33 vertebrae in your spine. And one by one, with every level, as the energy goes up your spine, it's a new level of awakening. And then when it reaches the base of your skull, the circuit is complete, and then you've got the full Kundalini awakening. That's when you have like full awakening, and you suddenly, you know, the drop becomes the ocean, right? So that happened to me in 2013. And I read that for people who have a very rapid escalation, it's because they have many past lifetimes of having it awakened already. So it's like that pattern is in place. So just the same way there's a physical maturation process, and you go through puberty, and there's a physical change that marks your physical maturity. There's a spiritual maturation process too. And it's the same thing. You go from being a child spiritually to suddenly being an adult. And with that change comes a whole new world of responsibility too. And then you're not a child anymore, and suddenly you awaken not only to certain truths, but it comes with a job. And I'm also a 48 strand. I feel like I say that too much. I refer to it too much. I refer to it. I'm trying to talk about the job. It basically gives you a very, very large energetic field to manage. Yeah, that's the way I want to say it. It's a tool. Sometimes I feel like when I talk about that, it could be misinterpreted to sound like it's something other than it is. I very often wish that I didn't have that, because it feels like a burden to me a lot. It's a very heavy job, and it doesn't seem to come with a lot of privilege. Sometimes like you kind of want it to. It comes with a lot of responsibility, to my mind. The other people that I know who are working at that level are also having a really tough time. Oh, so I will tell you this, and then I'll talk about what I actually was going to talk about. And then I also might go get the fan, because it's really, really hot in here. I'm glowing. I can see myself on the screen. Hang on. What was I started to say something. 48 strands. What did I start to say? Wait, 48 strands. I was talking about 48 strands. And I said, those of us who have 48 strands, and what are we doing? I started to say, it's going to come back to me as soon as I start talking about something else. Suddenly my mind will wrap itself around, and I'll say, oh yeah, okay, well, I'll get back to it. That's going to drive me nuts. Okay, Carmen, are you going to sit on my shoulder for a while? All right, she's going to hang out. I came here this time. I don't mean on the live stream. I mean, I came to do a job. One of the things I came to do is finish the job that we started as Joan of Arc. I came down with a team of people. I've talked about this before. And whether the team remains the same or not is not entirely clear to me now, since so many people bailed. Some of that is natural in the ascension process, because not everybody is functioning at the same level. Not all processes are the same. Every single time we come down, because we've been doing this for a really long time, when we come down in these team formations, the best laid plans, man. We plan these things. You're going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And it doesn't always work the way we thought it would. So you have to make rapid adjustments. Even the Joan of Arc lifetime. Here, why don't you go up there for a little bit? Don't climb in the cactus, though. I hate it when you do that. That's her favorite plant. She crushes everything. She climbs into the cactus and she crushes everything, all the succulents, everything breaks. And so I moved it from the windowsill in the other room because she kept sleeping in it. She just loves that little cactus garden. Usually it's the kind of thing that I would say, well, since she loves it, I'll let her sleep in it. But she's wrecked so much of it, and now the plant is really suffering. So I actually took it away from her sleeping shelf, and she might just head back in there. I hope she doesn't. Anyway, go sleep on the chair. Anyway, I have this task this time. I know that I still have a book that I'm supposed to write, and I know I'm supposed to. I came down originally. We were going to start a school, and so I am going to talk about that today. I don't know what's happening with this thing now. It's weird because you're kind of given this task, and then the funding didn't show up, the resources didn't show up. I put a tremendous amount of work into it, and then it's like the whole project died and the rest of the team split, and I haven't even, I can't even reach them now. So I don't know where that stands. I was told specifically, because Joan of Arc was the first indigo child, and then I was an awakened child in this lifetime, and I also have a history as a child prodigy, John Stanley. And I was told that because I had been specially reared towards with specific abilities, or that's the wrong word, with a specific body of knowledge that I was coming in with. It's kind of like being trained over many lifetimes for this task. They said regarding a school that if you start a school and offer everything that you know you needed, but you never got, you'll be mobbed. So it's not about making money, but it's about changing certain things about the educational system in order to provide what the new children will need, because there's not there are certain educational models that are doing a better job than others, like Sudbury's doing a good job, but even Sudbury, Sudbury is like a transitional school, or it's geared toward a transitional phase, but it's still not the cutting edge in terms of what the new kids are going to need in terms of starseeds, because the starseed children are coming, they're here now, but even the kids that are here now, we're just beginning to get like these prodigies, that they're called prodigies, but really it's going to be the new normal. I swear to God, it's going to be the new normal. Because when all the other crap is out of the way, when children are born into light bodies without the carbon-based density, they're going to be born into the silicone vessels. They're going to need an entirely new educational system, and it's gonna be like night and day. It's going to need to change radically. We can't use the old models from the past to be the foundation for the new one. We need a completely new model, the same way. And this is kind of one of the things that my soul happens to specialize in. You know, the Joan of Arc persona, that identity did that job already. You know what we need is a completely new model for what women can do. It's girls in pants. We're going to need schools for extraterrestrial children who speak with nature. So it's so interesting to me the way, and when I was trying to buy the school that I was trying to buy for some years, and Divine, we wanted to build that as the world's largest homeschool because that's really what it needs to be. It needs to be a play shop for all ages. It needs to be a school not just for children, but also for adults, because the adults, the parents, also need a re-educational system. We're dealing with merging populations that all need to be re-educated one way or another, and it needs to be a commingling of educational forces. The animals are also the teachers, the children are also the teachers, the children are the upgrades. The adults need to learn as much as the children. There's also a substantial autistic, or in the autism spectrum, which is really just higher dimensional thinking. What must happen is we can't keep the mindset that says we have to mainstream or figure out a way to mainstream the weird ones. Don't do that. You need to do the opposite of that. What you need to do is work on the telepathy for people who have autistic children, instead of trying to get the autistic children to speak and learn a linear language, which is going to be incredibly painful because you can't take that much light and try to force it into a lower system. What you need to do is get the parents to learn telepathy and get the parents to expand their awareness. And pretty soon they're going to be able to communicate with their children who came to teach them anyway. The future, we're going to be talking a lot about, we're going to be talking to other races, and most of them are telepathic. So rather than, you don't want to teach cuneiform either. There's only so much tradition that you can keep at this juncture in history. If you have an interest in it, it's one thing. But one thing that is going to have to be brought in and made normal real fast is the telepathy. Nonverbal communication, interspecies communication, animal communication. You have to learn. If you're going to wind up, you know how a lot of parents were interested in getting their children to learn Chinese or something to like be competitive when they grew up? You don't need to do that. What you need to do, if you learn telepathy, you're going to be able to communicate with the alien races because most of them are telepathic. In the higher dimensions, there's a different operating system. Most races are telepathic, and they communicate with images and feelings. And children are born this way. Children and mamas and babies we all communicate telepathically. So one of the things I was going to do today was talk a little bit about psychic children and how to maintain. You don't actually have to teach them. You're going to have to wind up teaching or reteaching the adults who have shut their abilities down. But before puberty, particularly young children, I loved being a preschool teacher. I loved that. I was also a nanny for a really long time. I was a nanny for a lot of different families. Very young children are already psychic. They're already quite telepathic. And I used to play these games with my kids a lot. I've got 2 daughters. I only live with one of them now. But my older daughter, Cricket, one of the most psychic kids I've ever met. She's a Virgo. My daughter Calico is pretty psychic too, but very different styles of that. So today I was going to tell a couple of stories about psychic children and how to work with them. Because I learned a lot when my babies were little. When Cricket was little, one of the things that, also my kids are only 13 months apart. So I was pregnant for a really long time. When Cricket was a baby, she used to take a nap in the middle of the day. And one of the things I would do, you know, when they first wake up after a nap, I could hear her babbling. You know, she's in a good mood. She wakes up, she doesn't cry, kind of stands in her crib, and I can just hear her babbling. So one thing I used to do, I would very quietly creep outside the door so I could hear her, but she couldn't see me. And so she was maybe 1.5 years, not yet 2. And I would just be able to hear all the things that she was saying. And one thing I used to do would be to play around with her telepathy, because it's always been an interest of mine. And I would think of something, and see if I could get a word to come out of her mouth. That's a little dicey. I would never do that with an adult, because it's kind of an infringement on free will. But I just used to want to see if I could do it. So I discovered that it worked really well with food and animals. So I would be sitting outside, or standing outside her door, and I would visualize a cat and think about it and feel it and think cat, 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 cat. And then I would just listen to see how long it would take her to say it. It worked real well. And but she's amazing. She's 15 now. I have an idea that it's probably turned off at least a little bit now. That happens a lot, oddly enough. I've noticed it with other kids too. Also with, I was a nanny for, hey, cut it out. You. I noticed this, and it happened with me too. Like, I was always extremely psychic and telepathic with animals, especially growing up. And then very often there's kind of a period of time in maybe high school, late junior high to high school, where our psychic senses, we shut them down. That just happens a lot. There's kind of a hardening. And later on, we kind of have a resurgence if it's something that's of interest to us. But Cricket used to do amazing things, like really incredibly psychic and very, very open. When she was little, this happened one time. So sometimes she would be in her crib, and I would give her lunch or something when she woke up. And one time I was going to make mozzarella sticks, and it tells you not to put them in the microwave. You're supposed to heat it up in the oven. And I decided to ignore that and see what would happen. So I put one in the microwave, even though it says do not microwave. I put one in the microwave to see if I could just see if it worked. And when I took it out, it really was bubbling, and I burned my finger rather badly. And I wrapped it, and I suddenly heard Cricket babbling in the other room, and I was like, okay, she's awake. And so I put everything down, And I went inside to get her out of her crib, and I opened the door, and she said, "She's too hot." And I was like, I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, the cheese was too hot. So it was just amazing. She was accurate sometimes where, like, it really stunned me. And I've been studying psychic development for a long time. I studied with Adam Bernstein in Kingston for years. And there are certain games, there are ways that you can cultivate your own abilities, not only by using like cards and things, but like certain games that I used to practice this with my kids a lot, like in car rides, like, I'm sending you something, see if you can get it. Different from a guessing game. A guessing game requires your mental faculties. But this isn't an intellectual exercise. I would say something like, okay, I'm sending you the information. Or they'd say, where are we going? I will send you the image. You tell me where it is. There are just different ways that you can practice these skill sets. And we used to practice, and like every time I would give them a bath, and because water is very conducive to that too. It's fascinating the way that certain information gets through. I could pass them something and they could pick it up easier if they're sitting in water versus when I'm driving and they're in the back seat of the car. That's pretty interesting too. And one time Christmases could be a real challenge. I have this short list of just little stories that I'm going to tell you because they're kind of good illustrations. Yeah, one thing about living in a group of people who are all telepathic, families, children, and mamas and mothers and babies and children have particularly young children. Sometimes the telepathy was such that I had to develop strategies, new strategies that, like, if you really don't have a telepathic connection, you could get away with certain things. You can't always get away with stuff. One time I bought ice cream. It was winter, and I didn't want the girls to see it when I came in the house, so I left it in the car. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go and put it in the freezer, but I know that they're in the kitchen, so I want to see if I can avoid bringing the ice cream in, so I'm just going to leave it in the car. So I left it in the car, and I forgot about it until the following morning. And then I was alone in the kitchen. The kids were upstairs in their room, and I suddenly thought to myself, oh, I forgot I left the ice cream in the car. I'll go get it. And then all of a sudden, I could just tell. I thought, shit, they just picked that up. And they did. I heard this little thump, 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 and Calico came downstairs, and I thought, oh, she just got that. She just picked up my thought. And she came in and she said, didn't you say you were going to get ice cream yesterday? I thought, yes, I did. And now I can't lie to her. I can't lie to her because she knows when I'm lying. There are these, so there are times where the way, I discovered this, where the way to get around something or prevent somebody from getting it, like this would happen a lot. Like I would think something and think like, oh, I don't want them to know that. So I would have to think of something different on purpose. Polar bear, polar bear, polar bear, polar bear, polar bear, polar bear. Because I don't want you to think about the chocolate. I wish I hadn't thought about the chocolate when you were in the room. Polar bear, polar bear, polar bear, polar bear, polar bear. Just try to camouflage it with something. That happens a lot. But cricket used to be so psychic that sometimes it could get to be a real challenge. You couldn't keep a present a secret. Like Christmases were challenging. One time I was shopping. You guys know what a Billy Bow is? there are these like rocking toys. They look like, anyway, they're these big plastic things. They've got holes in them, and you can kind of sit in them and rock in it and put them on your head. And they're kind of like all-purpose plastic toys, but they're really wholesome and really beautiful. They come in a number of different colors, and kind of look like mushroom caps, but they have got holes in them too, and it's a little wavy thing. Anyway, we had 2 of them, and the girls used to spin in them all the time, and we had good times with the Billy Bows. Well, one day I was out and I found little ones. They're expensive. They're like $65, these things. But I found little ones. They weren't that expensive. They came in a box, and they were about the size for American Girl dolls, which we loved. So I picked up 2 of them, and they were in a box, in a bag. And I came walking in, and my girls were at the kitchen table. And this is one of the ones that just shocked the hell out of me. And I am a psychic, and it shocked me. Walked into the kitchen carrying this bag. And I said, she said, "Did you get us something?" And I said, "Yes, but you can't have it because it's a surprise." And she said, "American Girl doll Billy Bows." And I was like, oh my God. That is so specific. Like, she didn't even know these things existed. And she just got it. And I think it's because maybe it's a very specific shape or something, but she got it. And like, she's really just one of these kids. Like, I was just amazed. So teaching children who are like this, it can be its own, it brings up a different set of challenges. For one thing, she can always talk to nature too. Like, she's the one, if you go on my wall, the picture of little girl building a fairy house, that's Cricket. And she was always very in tune with nature and very, very sensitive. She also said one time, I should finish this one story. In her first grade classroom, one time she was always very distracted, dreaming just really distracted, couldn't focus. I don't really think it's a problem. But that was the note that the teacher sent home more than once. Couldn't focus, very, very drifty. And one time she said to me, I found this so poignant. She said, I don't like it when people are mad at me, but I made myself this way on purpose. And I was very proud of her when she said that. I thought that was really important. It was an important thing for her to know. And I said, I know you did. You made yourself this way on purpose. She's not supposed to be hammered into a mold. One time the teacher kept moving her closer and closer to the teacher's desk to kind of keep an eye on her because she was always not paying attention. And one time she told me, I said, "What were you thinking about?" And she said, I was watching Chloe's grandmother. And I said, "What?" And she said, yeah, Chloe's grandmother was behind her and she was trying to get her attention. It may not have been Chloe, it could have been another child, but somebody's grandmother was there, dead grandmother, was trying to get the daughter's, this other child's attention. And this other child wasn't aware of it apparently, but Cricket could see it. So, and that was much more interesting than what the teacher was teaching. And who blames her? I was exactly the same way when I was a child. In second grade, I walked out of the school once because there was a door that was open and I couldn't stand it anymore at Roaring Brook Elementary in Chappaqua, New York. And it was school. There were no animals. There were no anything. I couldn't stand it. But there were woods outside the school. And I made a break for it and walked out of the school one day and spent some time in the woods before some other teacher noticed a loose child in the woods and came to find out what was going on. But I couldn't stand it anymore. So my guides had told me in 2013, well, you're going to start a school. And if you offer everything you know you needed when you were a child, but you never got, you'll be mobbed. So I don't know how this is going to happen because I'm penniless and we need a location. But one of the things that needs to happen is we need to bring animals and plants into the classroom to be teachers too. And we need all of the kingdoms to speak about how to interact with them. You can't just learn how to deal with people that are just like you, that are just in your own, that are human like you, that are in your same everything. That, not everything is like you. What you need to learn to do is harmonize and work cooperatively with everything else. And all of nature, all of creation speaks. So you're going to need to learn to listen to that. And everything has different properties. There's something to appreciate about all of these different beings. They're actually beings. And they do speak. It's not that they're not talking to us. It's that we've forgotten how to listen to all of it. So, it's amazing. This is a fluorite crystal. I was just appreciating this earlier. Can you imagine? It just grows like that. It looks like it's been cut, but it hasn't. It's just fully formed that way. What a thing of beauty. God. And this is a Herkimer diamond, which also looks like, these form loose in vugs. This is a huge one. And most of the time they're double terminated. This one is not, but this is just a beautiful example. And it's got a huge rainbow in it too. And this is a smoky celestial that has had the crap beaten out of it because I've carried it for years. This is such a workhorse. I love this one. This is like a double twin. I don't know if you can see it. But smoky quartz has properties that are different. And celestial quartz has, the formation gives it a certain identity, a certain property, certain qualities and characteristics. And then you've got inclusions, which also impart another vibrational frequency depending on what's in there. At some point I'll bring out my chlorite in quartz, which I just love. There's so much to appreciate. And what you really have to do in any educational system, in anything altogether, the fundamental vibrational platform, the energetic platform that you establish everything on needs to be one of love. You should be studying what you love. And you should be looking on all of these things with less of a mechanistic, you can study the mechanics of it, sure, but with less of a mechanistic idea and more of there should be more of a revelation. Like, look at the beauty that is this. This thing is a piece of, this is fascinating. You want to see something cool? This is just amazing. So this is a piece of selenite. You know selenite? So this is selenite right here. You're probably already familiar with selenite. But selenite does more than one thing. Like, here's another piece. So we've got, this is my magic wand. So we all know that selenite does this, right? It's very striated, it's water soluble, and it's a strong carrier of light. And you can send energy down it because it's so striated and straight. This is my magic wand, I always use it. But selenite comes in different forms. So this is clear white selenite, and so is this, and it's cheap too. Selenite's really not very expensive. You've got this selenite tower, but then you also have different forms of selenite that do certain things. So this is a desert rose, and desert rose is another form of selenite that's very good for lactation. So I found this piece. I love this piece. Check it out. So it's got like this, it's a little bit arched, right? And it's got 4 corners with kind of a bridge of 3 in the middle. This is such an interesting formation. So every single individual is going to carry its own properties. So you can link this to numerology. So you've got basically a 4 rectangle, and then you've got an arch in the middle. It reminds me a little bit of a massager, but if you realize that this is good for lactation, you can then learn to choose. You can kind of learn to read a given formation or a given stone. Like, what does the weight, because every force evolves a form. Nothing forms at random. It forms this way for a reason. So this, even though this is a desert rose and this is a desert rose, and both are good for lactation, they're going to do different things. This is going to have a singular quality to it, and this is going to do something different. You know, you can really intuit where to place things or how to best use them. This is what witches do. So then this is another desert rose, and you might think, you know, for those people who say, well, don't you have enough crystals? Why do you need, you know, what are you, a compulsive shopper? Sometimes you need more, because this is a desert rose and this is a desert rose too, but check out the differences. It's just amazing. So this thing has a square, it's like on a square platform. So a square is kind of a masculine energy. And then it's also got kind of blades that come up out of it. That's just amazing. I just love this thing. And then you're just surrounded by all of this beauty. So this is black kyanite. Kyanite is one of those stones that doesn't need clearing. Like citrine is another one that never needs to be cleared. And the black, so there's blue kyanite, there's black kyanite, and black kyanite does something different from the blue one. But it forms in this weird spray, and it's a little bit metallic, unlike the blue kyanite. So where's the other one? Oh, check this out. I love this thing. I just love it. This is a green opal. Green opal. That's just amazing. That's just a thing of beauty. I love this thing. And here's some scolecite. So scolecite's fascinating. Look, you can't really see it so much. It's very milky. And I don't know if you can see, there's a spray pattern in there. When it grows out like this. It can be, I actually saw a seller one time who he had mislabeled a ton of scolecite as selenite, and they grow in, they both have a striated field, a striated growing pattern, but scolecite is milky, and they do totally different things, and scolecite has a spray pattern. Anyway, I was going to talk about, I had one other cricket story too. Anyway, I'm going to tell you this story just because I'm into crystals all of a sudden, and I went off on a little crystal tangent, and this is funny. So should I tell you the story? I'll tell you the story, and then I won't use the person's name. So this is a tiny little Vogel crystal, that Vogel cut crystal. It's quartz, right? When I say it's a Vogel crystal, that means it has been cut in the Vogel style. So it's a very precise, precision cut, and it's not a toy, really not a toy. So I'm kind of, I'm wary and a little scared of this. I have never actually used it for anything in particular because of what I'm going to tell you. The reason I have this is because I had a friend who toyed with it. It was hers. She kind of bought it on a whim. And what the Vogel cut precision cut does, and you can get actual Vogels. Vogel refers to Marcel Vogel, and he was a scientist who used to work at IBM. And a while ago, he invented this, he developed an interest in crystals, and he developed this way of cutting crystals so precisely by using a microscope that it channeled the energy into basically a laser beam that really does stuff. Like, sometimes it's easy to think of all of this as woo-woo, like it's just mild. Not always. So I had a friend who got this little one, and real Vogels, I mean, they go into many, 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 many thousands of dollars. I've seen a Vogel for $23,000, and they're not cheap, real ones. There are a lot of ones that are cut in Vogel styles, and this is a Vogel style one. It sends a beam of energy. It uses your intention, right? So you can send your, I basically kind of know how it works. You can send your intention into the crystal, and it acts. So for psychic surgery, this is the tool that you want. This is like why I don't use it. I can play around with it, and if I point it to like the palm of my hand and wiggle it around, I can feel it feels like somebody doing this on your hand. If you do that on your hand, that's basically what it feels like. That's without me sending a beam of thought down it. So it cuts through your aura. It really does. It will cut through your aura, and it will do stuff if you wiggle it around. So I had a friend who bought this thing. And for years, as long as I've known her for about 35 years. And she's had tinnitus, bad tinnitus. I've lived with her a number of times too. And anyway, she had really bad tinnitus. And she had this thing, and one day her tinnitus was really bad. It was very frustrating to her. And so she picked this thing up, thinking that it's just like a magic wand, or like, I don't know, doesn't know how to use it, but I don't know, like thinking that it's like a ballpoint pen, like I'm just going to play around with something in my ear. She put it in her ear and wiggled it around and said, I wish my tinnitus would go away. Just go away. And she immediately went totally deaf in both her ears for 2 weeks. I'm not kidding you at all. And she called me. She was totally deaf in the one ear, and then the other ear, she was like, it was like really hard of hearing. And it stayed that way for 2 weeks. And that was just because she did this thing. So she's like, I don't want it. Can you take it. So I took it, but I've kept it in this box because I don't know enough about how to use it properly. Like, I know the basic idea, but I don't have anything to select. Like if somebody gives you a really powerful laser, I don't really have anything to use it on, to the best of my knowledge. I like the idea that I have it. Anyway, maybe I could use it as a weapon, but I wouldn't, because that'd be bad karma. Anyway, this is stibnite. This is an interesting thing too, isn't it? Very metallic. Reminds me of and it's so interesting. It's like, this is black kyanite and this is stibnite, and they really do have a lot in common, but they do totally different things. Anyway, what was it? And this is girasol. Girasol or girasol. I like it. It's a nice one. Has a good feel to it. Anybody else want to come? Oh, so here's my look. Yes, which brings me back to my Lemurian. This is the little baby crystal. So the crystal children, there are more. Crystal children are fascinating. My daughter Cricket is a crystal child. I'm an indigo. And then my daughter Calico is so interesting. Usually the indigos come before the crystal children, primarily because the crystal children who incarnated on the planet, these waves of indigos, were really the system's busters. We're kind of come down designed for conflict. And many of us incarnated in these, hi, Kimberly. Many of us incarnated into these families where there was a lot of busting that was needed. We bust out of systems that are too confining. We come into the families and we do a lot of the certain amount of combat living that the crystal children are not really designed for. The crystal children are extremely sensitive. They've got these enormous eyes. And then the rainbow children, and there's, obviously it's not like a hard and vast line, but between them. But usually the indigos come first to pave the way for the crystals. And then the rainbow children are incarnating now. So where was I going with this? I was going to talk about, so starseed children. They're coming in with a lot of their abilities intact, with their past life memories intact. A lot of them are coming in as prodigies. I don't like that word. It's, but basically they're coming in with their past life abilities present. The reason for this is because when, the only reason we had to come in with such a teeny little bit of our memory when we were in carbon-based life forms, carbon-based vessels, is because there wasn't enough space. But if we're incarnating into light-based silicone vessels, much more of ourselves can be brought in. So if you were a piano player in multiple lives, you're just going to come back with your memories and your abilities intact. So that's one of the reasons why the educational system is going to wind up changing, because you don't have to. It's not like the adults have to teach the children the way. We're not going to be teaching them from a traditional model. It's more like the open road. So the children are going to be much more the teachers, since they are the ones who are delivering the upgrade. What else was I going to say? Oh, and since so many children have, they come in with their telepathy, the telepathy and the psychic development, psychic abilities really are a higher form of knowledge. It needs to be a total revamp, because also since we're going to be operating in this network also, you don't have as much book learning as you had before, where you had to memorize things to learn them. It's more like if you have an opening, you can call in somebody, you can call in the knowledge. As soon as you need it, you'll have it. You'll get the download. You'll just call in whatever you need to know. We're moving into this time. And what we really need is an ability to constantly adapt. So teaching improv would be good. Teaching any of the creative arts that are hands-on, since one of the things, the other thing that I was going to, in the school that I was starting, when you, nurture has to be taught too. You learn to care for others. That like you must learn to garden. You must learn to grow things and nurture things that are not necessarily like yourself. Coexist with nature and other species. Also, when you learn to grow something, you become someone who doesn't destroy things as easily. So art is important. It's not only about self-expression, but it's about how to actually make something and care for it. That's an important thing. And our first creation is always ourselves. So it's important to learn how to pay very close attention to your own internal ecosystem and feel your way through circumstances, as opposed to paying attention to some external authority that isn't. So that you live in a state of kind of constantly walking in question. Is this right for me? Is this right for me? Is this right for me? And you cultivate yourself while caring for all other beings. We need to have a different kind of school system. Where else was I going with this? Animal communication, telepathy. Oh, I was going to talk about that too. How are we doing on time? 6:15. What else am I doing? My daughter's someplace else for tonight. I may as well keep talking. Hang on a second. Oh, I was going to talk about the process of purging. The process of purging. So right now, you know this, on the planet, if you're listening to this, the process of ascension is one of destruction and clearing. Clearing, purging. It feels like sometimes it feels like the clearing process just never ends. Although I know that I went through some years where literally that was all I was doing. I was clearing for the entire Joan of Arc hologram, beginning in 2013, and it only just kind of started slowing down. It basically ended, maybe 6 months ago. But some of the clearing process was so incredibly intense because I was clearing all of that stuff from like the 100 Years' War. I mean, you've got your whole family lineage. I'm sure some of you can relate, a lot of you. Your family lineage, all of that stuff has got to be cleared out completely. And we're moving from a place of such incredible condensed density and darkness and all of that horror. You know, you're looking, and we're doing this on the clearing's happening on a collective level, obviously, as well as a personal level. And often, once we're finally cleared of our own stuff, we go into service for the collective. I've done a tremendous amount of clearing for the collective. It's heavy, really difficult work. Those of us, I'll start to talk about the 48 strands again. You know that we only have 2 strands of biological DNA. And then what we're trying to do for everyone on the planet is get everyone up to the full 12 strands of DNA, which is going to bring everybody's telepathy back online. So then you'll have your 2 strands of biological DNA and your 10 strands of spiritual DNA, which are for everyone on the planet, which would basically be a global awakening. There are, Sarah Adams told me just the other day that I guess the 24 strand population, because you go up by increments, and she had said they're called Orphine Indigos. Or maybe who knows? Maybe that's just only some of them. But apparently there's a whole group of people called Orphine Indigos, and they have 24 strands of DNA. And they're also doing some very heavy lifting, because you really only come down with that kind of tool if you're on a purging level. It's kind of like you're bailing for, it's like if the unawakened people, basically they're clearing, but they might only have a clearing vessel that's like the size of a thimble. But there's a lot of darkness that needs to be processed. When we process it, it all has to be felt and dealt with, purged, basically. And we do that through our own experiences. So that's why I've said that I'm a 48 strander, and I am, but it's not something that you would vie for or want, because that just basically means I have a great big bucket. Some of us, it came down because we could handle this enormous field, and you come down and you're like, okay, I'm going to help lift this much darkness off the planet. And you go into these dark experiences and you go, huh, and you bring it all up through yourself. It's disgusting and dark and painful work. Where was I going with this? I'm sure I was saying it for some reason. Where was I going with this? Hang on a minute. It'll come back to me in a minute. Oh, disgusting, painful work. Oh, that's what I started to say. So, purging. One of the things I would like to mention about purging is that it's important to remember that everyone around you is purging too. At this time in history, we're going through this collective nightmare. On one hand, it's an awakening because, the planet's awakening. But the process is hard. And purging is basically, I always want to use the term soul vomit. except your soul really doesn't vomit. It's like the ego vomit, but that's what, like, all of that density from not just you, but it's also your lineage. And those of us who came down, you know, the Orpheum Indigos who have 24 strands, the whatever the fuck you call us, who have 48. Masochists. Came down into some of the, and also, I'm not trying to diss those people who don't have that. Whatever size pipe you are, you're lifting something. I don't mean to be condescending about it. It's heavy work, like for real. It's a lot like vomiting. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is the importance of compassion. Because it's so easy sometimes to look at the experience of someone who is maybe not acting at their best. Maybe they're yelling. Maybe they're depressed or acting really badly or in some kind of state that began with anguish is the point. And it's so easy to criticize or put them in some sort of a, view them through a third dimensional lens. I guess that's the way I want to say it. I've been watching and listening to some things recently where I heard some people criticize or look at somebody's bad behavior and diagnose it. That's what they did. I was going to say judge, but it's really more like they diagnose it. Well, you know what this person should do? That's just not acceptable. They need to do this and this and this and this and this because, and from the people who did that are all people who are very, very heavily based in third dimensional paradigm. They don't know anything about ascension. They don't know what this person is actually doing. I know that they're clearing, that the person who's yelling or behaving badly or depressed or not acting right or also not going to therapy and also not playing the game by the third dimensional standpoint, and you know, they're acting irresponsible. But I happen to know that in some of these cases, because I've heard them say this about, I think it was about 3 people, that they're all in the middle of a clearing process and they're doing a job for humanity that the people who were criticizing knew nothing about. They were correct in terms of what they noticed about the person's behavior. That person does yell a lot. That person is very angry. They are having eruptions of rage. But there's also a reason that has nothing to do with anger and has everything to do with what they're actually, what they stepped into in order to clear it for their lineage. And this is the job that so many of us actually came to do. So I would ask you to be more compassionate with one another and more compassionate also with yourself if you're going through one of these spells where the amount of emotional crap that's coming out of you seems to bear no, I was going to say resemblance to reality, but seems to be like uncalled for. A lot of this stuff simply has to be cleared. And the person is not the thing that they're clearing. It's kind of like, a good analogy would be like if you saw somebody when they were vomiting, they were mid-vomit, and that's all they were doing was vomiting, 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 vomiting. And you said, "You are disgusting. Look at those peas. Look at those peas that you just threw up." And then you went to your friend and you said, "Oh, this person just, the only thing they ever do is throw up peas. They're just full of peas, that person. They should control themselves." Well, no, they shouldn't. They're not the vomit. The purge, the vomit is what they aren't. That's the toxin that they're getting rid of. So that's what you're seeing. You're not actually seeing the real person. On a good day, when they're not poisoned, they might not act that way at all. They might not yell ever. They might not even like peas. Maybe that's why their body is rejecting the peas. You need to cut every last person some slack. I'm not saying tolerate abuse, but make sure it's actually abuse and not just somebody in a purge, because the purge is real. And a lot of us are doing it. We stepped into these roles. You know, like I said that it's like I'm bailing, like I'm a great big bucket. It would kind of, it's true. It's kind of be like if I picked up if I stepped into a sinking rowboat with a great big bucket and picked up a whole bunch of it, but now I'm holding it. And so if somebody weighed me, I might seem to be, there's a difference between me and what's in the bucket that I just happened to pick up. That's my only point. So I'm seeing this from a lot of people. Oh, there's the other thing. So there's this big divide, right? I've really been noticing this lately. So, not everybody's coming. This is fascinating to me. I really had hoped that everybody was going to be coming, but not everybody is. There's a whole group of people, and you probably know some in your own life too, that they're going to stay in 3. I really didn't think that was going to happen. I don't know what I thought, but I kind of thought that eventually they would get it, like they were just like slow. But no, there are some who are just not. They're going to finish their 3rd dimensional existence, and that's going to be the end of that. They're going to go off onto another 3rd dimensional planet, but not everybody's coming, and the divide is becoming real distinct. Like I was going to talk about that too. I'm going to do that today. Hang on. It's gotten really dark in here. I look like I'm glowing. Hang on. What is an energetic block? Let's see. The way to unify is to focus on the commonality. I was going to talk about that. Should I continue? What time is it? I've only been, this is a short one. So it's only, hang on one second. I was going to talk about different kinds of energetic blocks too, because there are different kinds of energetic blocks. I'm going to turn on a light though, 1 second. Oh, wait, why is this on? Hang on. Did that do anything? Not really. Mildly. Okay. There are different kinds of energetic blocks. And some of them we can control. Some of them we can control or change. And some of them are a lot more difficult to manage. I've been dealing with some of these lately. And I'm going to talk about that right now. You know what? I think I might talk about that a different day because I want to have a different diagram as well. Here's one thing. I was going to talk about this. And then I think I'll end it. But I'll do another one tomorrow. I want a few more diagrams. And yeah. I was going to talk about what to do for Ascension symptoms. For all of you who are doing major clearing work, get yourself some pink salt. You should be taking salt baths at least every day for the real clearing processes. Also, in times of stress, whoops, opening this bag 1 second. In times of stress, very often our polarity will reverse. And one of the ways you can change it so it doesn't stay reversed, if your energetic polarity, which goes in a direction, right? It's supposed to go in a direction. And when we get stressed, our polarity shifts and it goes in the opposite direction. If we remain in a state of chronic stress, our polarity begins to think that that's the normal way it's supposed to be, so it stays that way. So when you tap your karate chop point, which is right here, if you tap this, for the duration of time that you tap it, your polarity goes back to normal, the way it's supposed to be, where your body can heal and the energy's running. That's why I'm swaying. When you're under chronic stress, tap this periodically, just like this, about the same speed that I'm doing it. And what it does, if you do it often enough, it's going to retrain your body to maintain the correct polarity. And that way you'll be running in the right direction. So any kind of salt, this is pink Himalayan salt. Any kind of salt, if you put it in a bath, will draw the negative energy out of your body, out of your tissues. It'll draw it out of your aura. If you use pink salt, this is halite, pink halite. And what it does is not only does it draw the negative energy out of your aura and out of your physical body, but because it's pink, it infuses into those tissues the frequency of self-love. So you can do two things at once, and it's a very loving action. I encourage it. Use a good amount of it, like at least 1 cup of sea salt. You can also combine them. That's a good idea. Yes? What do you want, dear? Oh, you're hungry. You need dinner. Okay, I'll be there. Oh, I was going to talk about that. I was going to talk about the thing on your head. Yes. This dog, Tosh, had a growth coming out of his head, It looked like a pink pencil eraser, and about that yay high. It was really tall. It was disgusting, and it was cracking and bleeding. It was probably cancer. We thought it was probably cancer, but I'm broke. I'm completely broke, cancel, and couldn't afford to take him to the doctor. So my friend Sherry Lee came over, and she said, that dog's got cancer on his head. I said, you know, he probably does. I can't take him to the vet. And she said, you don't need to take him to the vet. You need frankincense oil, 100% pure, high-grade frankincense oil is going to take that right down. And to be honest, I did not believe her. But she bought me frankincense oil. And it was $90 a bottle. And she said, put this on his head. And it turns out later, she said, I should have been using it twice a day, but I didn't know that. So I just put it on once a day with a little paintbrush. And it went down like, I know, you should show them. It went, hello, show them your head. See that little thing? I don't know if you could even see it now. It went down. It went down, like, it really went down. Like, it started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And then I went to the hospital, and he went to stay with at a dog boarders, and she spilled the bottle. But it was down to about there now. And Sherry has said, I should have her on to talk about it. She has said that every kind of cancer can be cured with some essential oil, which actually would make sense since the body talks. I mean, I know enough about energy medicine. I am a Reiki master. And EFT, I have EFT advanced. And a certain amount of access consciousness training also. And the body does talk. It would make a lot of sense that that all cancer can be cured with essential oils, because it just would make sense. But what this frankincense oil did, and it only took like it was a week. Like, this thing was cracking and bleeding, and I was wiping it up like 5 times a day. It was really gross. And it just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And in probably 8 days, it was way under half the size. I really didn't think it was going to work. I didn't. I admit it. But it did work, didn't it? And now you're fine. So now we'll get another bottle of oil, and then we'll fix the rest of it. Okay. What else was I going to say? Hang on a minute. Then I'm going to feed you dinner. He said, stop picking on my head. I'm hungry. Yeah, okay. This is going to be for tomorrow. Because I do want to talk about all of life is a living puzzle, and that's a whole lecture. And I do have several diagrams. And spot it. Yeah, I'm going to have to, I'm going to put my crystals away and bring out all my diagrams and talk about the way frequencies work, the way synchronicities work, and the way yeah, because that's amazing. So that's a long lecture. But these dogs want dinner. So I will go feed my dogs, and I think I'm going to come back tomorrow and talk to you all. If anyone would like to book a session, I would really like to give some sessions. The Ascension Arc. If you go to my wall, the Ascension Arc is my YouTube channel. Do me a favor, please. I'm trying to build my channel. So if you go to YouTube on the Ascension Arc, and if you could subscribe, I would appreciate it, because they will allow me to do live streams on YouTube once I reach 1,000 subscribers, and I don't even have 100. So I would like more people to sign up there. If you would like to book a private session, I'm going to put the link on my Facebook wall. Is that all? Yeah, okay. I love you. These are fun. I like to. That's all. Amy Sunshine. Yes, we're due to meet tonight. Okay, I'll call you in just a little bit. I love you. Bye.